Evening, fellow Airstreamers. I just figured I would share with you something interesting I found here. So, first of all, I can't take complete credit for this. I did a little bit of perusing on the forums or the Facebook pages and found other people talking about it, but I didn't really see any photos or pictures showing exactly what the issue was. In any case, the problem was I was having low water pressure with hot water only. Sink, shower, bathroom faucet, didn't matter, but the low pressure issue was on the hot water, not the cold. And lo and behold, it's a mixing valve that tends to be the problem on the hot water heater. So I'll show you here in a minute how to put this back onto the water heater. But this is the specific port. You can hopefully see in here the screen has now been cleaned. I cleaned all as much of the old thread sealant and stuff as I could off of the threads and cleaned this up. I let it soak in a tiny little cup of vinegar here for maybe 15 minutes or so. So hopefully that helps, and then wiped things down a little bit. I'm just going to put it back together real quick. So first of all three of these fittings have a little rubber O-ring on them. So these fittings where the brass threads into the valve, they do not need any thread sealant or anything. I just put a little bit of Vaseline on them to help the O-ring seat a little bit better without it getting caught, snagged, or binding up. But we'll thread this in real quick and torque it up, and then I'll show you putting this back on the actual hot water heater. So this is an 1 1/16 socket, and it appears you do not need a deep well. Just a regular socket will do. A 6-point is best if you had it, but this is a regular 12-point, and that works. Also, I'm using a pair of vice protector chucks here to try and protect the valve a little bit. So, all right, let's take this thing out and go put it back in the water heater. All right, so we're back here in the camper. This is the hot water heater. Our camper is a 25-foot front bed twin configuration, so we have the external storage here. It's where I keep an axe, a lantern, some gloves, and things like that. And also you have the little bins for your bedroom storage. And so here are the tools that I used for this project, and I'll go through that real quickly. But in any case, here's the hot water heater, and that is where the mixing valve goes, which it's been removed already. So I'm going to try and prop the phone here to show you how to install the Teflon tape. This isn't rocket surgery. Many of you who've done plumbing before are going to be well familiar with this, and this is not anything new. But if you have not done Teflon tape before, there are kind of some tricks. So number one is the direction that you put it on. You want to make sure you wrap it such that when you're tightening the fitting, the Teflon tape stays on. If you run it backwards, which hopefully I do it correctly here, if you run it backwards, then it'll just unthread when you're trying to tighten up the fitting. So hopefully this shows up in the camera. But in short, give it a couple wraps here of the tape. You don't need a ton, but you need a couple wraps. But then also, an old-timer plumber gave me the tip. He said, Teflon tape is good, and pipe dope or pipe thread sealant is also good, but Teflon tape and pipe thread sealant together is the best. And ever since I've followed that rule, he's been right. So I just kind of massage the container of thread sealant a little bit and put a couple dabs on here. You don't need a ton, but it does seem like if you do a little bit of thread sealant and tape, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a good leak-free connection. So one thing though, be careful with this thread sealant. If that gets on anything, it's a pain in the butt to get off. So, all right, I'll try and do this one-handed. Hold the camera with the other hand. So I've already cleaned up the threads a little bit. I lied. I did not clean up the threads. Okay, so in the process of cleaning the threads here, I managed to stop my phone accidentally from recording and missed the reinstallation process. But in any case, I'll walk through it real quick. Basically, after you clean up all your threads, you put your pipe dope and thread tape on there. You thread this thing back in. I used a large crescent to break it loose. You definitely want to have a good grip on these flat surfaces on the side of the brass. You could probably try to use a pipe wrench on this, but you might end up damaging something here. I would recommend first trying to use a crescent and getting it on those flats that are down in there. Now, you do have to be careful. You got to make sure that you are truly on the flat, and you got to wiggle it and tighten up the worm. Those of you who are familiar with using a crescent wrench know what I mean. But make sure it is on there good and tight, because you don't have a lot of thickness there to grab onto, and that is something that could round off. It was pretty darn tight when I took it off to start. But basically, use the big wrench to get it going. Once it's loose, I used a smaller crescent wrench to run it off the rest of the way. Easy peasy. This fitting here is you hand tighten it. There is a small rubber seal in there, so do be careful to make sure that rubber seal gets placed in correctly. This side here is, you need to use a wrench or crescent wrench to tighten that, but it has its own rubber seal as well, so pretty straightforward. That is all, but no pipe dope or thread sealant required on either of those. Again, be careful about dripping water. This is all live power right now. If you're plugged in, or if you have 12 volts, there is power in here somewhere. So I'm not plugged into shore power right now, but I do have the 12 volts on, and I just have a little battery tender going. But again, real quick to run through the tools that I used. You've got a wooden panel, a thin, like a Luann style panel that goes over all of this. This is it right here. So just used a power screwdriver to zip those 5 or 6 Phillips screws off. I did have a hammer here originally. I did not need to pry with any special tools to get the panel off. It came off by hand, but note there are these small finish screws on here, or finish nails rather. I originally thought I was gonna try and take the hammer them back so that they're flush, to make it easier to place when you put the panel back down, and then drive the nails back in. The problem is these screws are super thin, and I was unsuccessful at pushing any of them back out. So you either got to just leave them out as they are, and then when you go to reinstall the panel, just be careful to get each nail started back in the hole where it came from originally. There may be 4 of them, 3 or 4. Or you could probably get away with just pulling those nails off altogether. So yeah, Phillips screw, big crescent, small crescent, ratchet with a I believe it was an 1/16 socket. Got your pipe thread, pipe dope, little flashlight so you can see what you're doing, and a hammer if you like. And most importantly, your favorite beer, which today's Aldi's Maguire's Stout. Nothing special, but all right, Airstreamers, thank you, and hope you all have a great camping season and plenty of hot water. Again, though, actually, this issue, just so you know, if this is crudded up or plugged up, it will cause hot water pressure issues, both on land when you're hooked up to city water, as well as if you're using the water in the tank of the camper with the pump. So all your hot water has to go through that valve. So it's good. It's important that it's cleaned up, and it's important that you use a filter when you're putting your water in the camper. That'll help to prevent that from getting gummed up again in the future. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.